All right. Well, today I wanted to talk about times I was bullied in high school for being very skinny and the non dating benefits of lifting weights. So, I was super skinny growing up. I always had a super high metabolism growing up. I know it's hard to believe as I was very overweight for many years, but growing up, I had the classic ectomorph body type, which definitely had its benefits back then. It wasn't until I got to college where I was able to put on muscle and eventually, a ton of weight. Back in ninth grade, I was about 5'7", 5'8", and 100 pounds soaking wet. I was also a pretty shy kid growing up. I had friends, but I never was the type of kid to really put myself out there or stand up for myself. There was a kid that used to just fuck with everybody. He was like the classic high school bully that would shove people in the hallway, push people, get in people's face, and just act like a big old tough guy. This guy was 6'2" since 8th grade. I went to middle school with this kid, and I feel like he was always 6'2". He was one of those early growers, and then he just stayed that same height all the way up until the end of high school. And I went to middle school with him. Like I said, he was always tall, always had broad shoulders since sixth grade. He was literally the biggest kid in middle school, and he was the biggest bully as well. And one day in ninth grade, I was walking down the hallway towards the end of the day, and I can see him from my peripheral. He's walking on the same side of the hallway. And as he gets closer, he just throws his shoulder into mine, and I collide into the wall. Like I said, I was 100 pounds soaking wet. And this guy had 7 inches on me as well. And he was like, "What's up? What's up?" And then he shoved my shoulders again, and I almost fell to the ground. And I lunged forward and I tried to shove him back, but he didn't even move. When you're 100 pounds soaking wet and you try to shove someone who's 6'2", and this guy was at least 200 pounds, or if not close to it. It's like a fly trying to beat up a dog. I remember he pushed me again, and then he pinned me up against the wall, and I tried to go for a single leg at the time, as I had wrestled when I was really young, when I was 5 to 9 years old. And this obviously didn't work. And he was like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" And there was this teacher that was nearby. This went on for a couple minutes. And he tried to put me in a headlock when I was trying to get the single leg on him. And I couldn't even freaking breathe. And then there was this teacher saw it, and he got in the middle and broke it up. And this kid was always getting in trouble. So the teacher was told him to go right to the principal's office. He yelled at this kid. Like I said, he was a known bully, known troublemaker in my town. And I just walked out of the school that day, and my mom picked me up. But the next morning I got called into the principal's office, and the principal told me that he saw me getting shoved and pinned against the wall from the camera. And I was really nervous. The principal wasn't even trying to ask me if I was okay. He was just "We saw on the camera that so-and-so pushed you up against the wall and he had you in a headlock. Is this true?" And I was like, "Yeah." I didn't want to snitch, but I was like, "Yeah, it's true." They already saw it on the cameras. So what am I going to do? So basically the kid ended up getting a 1 week out of school suspension. And a few weeks later, him and 2 of his buddies came onto the street I was living on, looking for me. It was just the most bizarre thing, because a rumor went around school that I snitched on him, and it was just weird. But I definitely got some dirty looks from him and his friends for a couple weeks. But then they literally showed up on my street trying to find me, and they were trying to find my house. And a girl that lived on my street, I guess, saw them, and she told her older brother, which was my neighbor. And my neighbor at the time, he was 6'3", 6'4", 260, 270. He played football for the high school. He was a senior at the time. I get it, a knock on the door, a loud knock. And my mom answers it. So my mom calls me, and I come out to the door. And he was like, "Yo, man, these kids came. There was three kids. They were coming to jump you. They were coming to fight you. I chased them down the street. Don't worry. They're out of here." And I was like, oh my God, fuck. Like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't even know what to do back then. But there was like this school dance that night. And I went with a few friends of mine. And I was telling my buddy, I was like, yo, dude, like, I don't know what's going to happen here at this dance. But like, you know, I might get into a fight. Like, I don't know what to do. And my friend's like, yo, man, I got your back. Like, don't worry. My friend was like a pretty big guy at the time. Like, he was also someone who was like 6 feet tall since like 8th grade. So I kind of felt like comfortable going with him. I just felt like I was, you know, I had someone that had my back. It was interesting. Like, he comes up to me when I was with my friend. He's like, yo, man, you snitch. You a bitch. And I was like, I tell him, I'm like, I ain't no snitch. Like, they got it on camera, motherfucker. And my friend like mediated it and like backed me up. And he was like, yeah, man, he didn't snitch on you. Like, they got it on camera. Like, just chill out. Like, you know, he's good. And then he was like, all right, man, like, just watch your back. And like, I don't know, man. Luckily, after that night, I didn't have any like more major run-ins with this kid. But the moral of the story is like, when you're extremely skinny, especially growing up in like middle school, high school, even college to an extent, you're just more likely to be a target of bullying, and you're just an easier victim for, you know, just like bad people as well. So in 10th grade, I had grown to about 5'9", but I was still like 110 pounds soaking wet. And I had this group of friends at the time. I was friends with them like in middle school as well. And it was interesting, but like we went like midnight bowling one weekend. And you know when you're playing bowling and you're putting the names on the screens, like they were making nicknames for everyone in the group. And like I had a friend that was like Puerto Rican, and they named him Mexican. And my other buddy, they called him Fat Lard. And then when they got to my nickname, they named me Skinny Dick. I remember like when he put the name up there, like they were all like busting out laughing, and like, you know, they thought it was like the most hilarious thing in the world. And like, yeah, it was pretty funny. Like, to be honest, like, I don't know. They would like the kids in my friends at the time. They would say stuff like, "Yo, tell your mom to feed you. Like, you're like a starving African child." Or they'd be like, "Yo, you're skinnier than a twig. Like, I could flick you in half." They would just say stuff like that, and like, I don't know. It didn't really bother me too much. Like, I've always had like fairly thick skin, but they would call me like Skinny Dick. Like, I remember I was like walking across the cafeteria, and like my one buddy at the time, like he was the one they called like Fat Lardo. He like yells across the cafeteria. He's like, "Skinny Dick!" And like everyone like looks around, and like I pretend like that it wasn't me. And he yells it again, like as I'm like getting close to the table. He's like, "Yo, Skinny Dick's here!" And it was like, I don't know, like it was funny, but like it was just like everyone just started busting out laughing. Like it was like, I don't know. This is the kind of stuff like when you're really really skinny and you're not tall, you just become like the butt of the joke in the friend group growing up. Like you're like the runt of the group, and like I definitely was the runt of the group, just like being so skinny. And like ironically, you know, 6-7 years later, I turn out to be like really overweight. So like I've seen it from both sides, like both body types, and like how you're treated overall by people. So once I got to 11th grade the next year, I shot up to about 5'11", and I finally put on a little more weight. I was around like 130, 135 pounds, still pretty skinny, but not like noticeably skinny, like not noticeably frail. My dad has suggested that I started lifting weights. Like my dad had a punching bag in the garage. He had like a pull-up bar. He has like some like free weights in the garage, and he like got me into lifting weights. He got me to like do like an arms routine. Like we had like a bench press, so I would bench the bar. I would bench slide, put like 10 pounds on each side, and I would bench, you know, like literally 80 pounds, like 80 pounds. I got up to benching 100 pounds. I remember I was like super proud of myself that day to even like bench 100 pounds. It was like really sad. Honestly, once I got to about 5'11" and started to not be like super frail skinny, I noticed that like less people messed with me that year. I mean, I still got messed with a decent amount by like the friend group I hung out with, but just like subconsciously, because I like gained a little bit of muscle and I was a little bit taller, there was like way less jokes cracked on me. During my 12th grade year, that's when I had like my bigger growth spurt. I shot up to about 6'2", 6'2", and I'm 6'2" and a half barefoot now. But I shot up like those 3 inches and then put on like another 25 pounds. So it was like 6'2", 6'2" and a half, 160 pounds. And like I said, it was still extremely hard for me to put on muscle back then. But I was able to put on a little muscle on my chest, a little on my shoulders, back and arms, to give me at least somewhat semblance of a physique and some muscle. And the craziest part is like once I grew to over 6'2", I noticed that I got much more respect from like guys in my grade that would try to mess with me like during prior years. Like I remember in 10th grade, we were playing flag football in gym class, and I was going to catch the ball, and this kid just freaking decks me on the ground. Like he just puts his head right into my chest, and I like freaking fly like 2 feet. And I was like down on the ground for like 15 seconds. And like that kid just like laughed and like ran off. And I just remember like towards the end of senior year, that same guy was in one of my classes. And like somehow we got into like starting like talking about like lifting weights. And he was asking me like what protein powder I used, if I used creatine. Like this kid didn't even remember like decking me like really, really hard 2 years prior. And like it was just crazy. But like when people see you as weaker than they are, whether that's they see you like, you know, that whether you're like really frail skinny or, you know, like or shorter than them, like some people like prey on that. And I think in people in general, when they see you as someone that has some size to them, whether that's you're a taller person or you just have some more muscle, I think people subconsciously respect it to some extent. The kid that shoved me in 9th grade, he actually stopped growing in 9th grade. Like he was one of those people that like grew very early on, like in 6th grade, and then just kept that height throughout, you know, all of high school. But I noticed with him, like he also gave me more respect once I got to senior year. Like he would still mess with like everyone else. He would mess with like a lot of other kids, do the same thing, like walk up to them, like try to put them in a headlock or shove them into a locker or, you know, try to take their lunch or throw trash at someone. Like he was literally like the schoolyard bully on like steroids. He passed away like 7 years ago. He had like an overdose, but it's like he couldn't even remember trying to come beat me up on my street 3 years prior. And a lot of people talk about the benefits of working out to get women, but honestly, the non-dating benefits of working out, I think they go much further overall in like your like in your life, in my opinion. Like if you look frail and skinny as a man, men are just gonna respect you less, and you're more likely to have people mess with you, whether that means trying to rob you on the streets or just mess with you verbally. That might be at work. That might be you're at a bar somewhere. When you put on some muscle, you just become less of a target. I'm not saying that no one will ever mess with you. No one will ever try to start a fight with you. But when you've built up some muscle, like some upper body muscle, it's just going to happen much, much less. When people see you have some muscle, they're just going to think twice about messing with you, bottom line. There are also many other benefits of lifting weights. For one, when you lift weights, you feel stronger. Lifting weights is not easy, and it takes time to build strength, especially without steroids. Lifting weights is also good for increasing testosterone and energy levels in general. Weightlifting is also a good stress reliever. I definitely think lifting weights is super important, especially if you're on the shorter side. If you can't be tall, you can still work out to build a good body. And even if lifting weights doesn't get you any women, from a black pill perspective, like women tend to, you know, favor things like bone structure, your facial features, facial symmetry, your height. You know, they tend to favor those over your body. But even if, like I said, even if you don't get women with your body, it just, at the end of the day, it's going to prevent more people from messing with you. And that can go a lot further in the workplace. And it goes far for your general safety and overall peace of mind. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Feel free to comment down below any experience you have being skinny. And feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.